we're totally in a situation where Health Canada is making a bunch of moves to take away our natural health products. In 1994, I knew nothing about the regulation of natural products, but I actually became counsel for Health Canada. So I was acting for Health Canada against a herbalist named Jim Strauss, who Health Canada was trying to shut down. And he was importing herbs from the United States, and Health Canada seized his herbs at the border, basically stole his herbs. And he's suing Health Canada because they stole his herbs. And I'm hired by Health Canada, and I go to court, and I have his matter thrown out of court. Then I start my own firm, and Health Canada, in another effort to shut this guy down, basically convinced the College of Physicians and Surgeons in British Columbia to charge him with practicing medicine without a license, because only doctors can practice medicine, and practice of medicine included making treatment claims. And this guy couldn't shut up about curing heart disease. I mean, not only was he making treatment claims, but he was making treatment claims for the leading cause of death for men at that time. And Health Canada couldn't stand it. And what's interesting about this story is when I was acting for Health Canada, and they're telling me, this is a rogue herbalist. Those were actually their words. And isn't it dangerous that here we've got this rogue herbalist actually, pretending that he can treat a serious health condition with a natural product that is not approved of by the government, Health Canada. Like I didn't even have any idea that this whole idea that all our natural products are illegal and you have to get permission from the government to sell them, just how offensive that is to freedom and sovereignty and the whole thing. Like I wasn't there at all. I drank the Kool-Aid and I thought, oh yeah, no, this kind of is actually crazy, isn't it? That this guy would be doing that. So when I was acting for him, though, I want to win the case. It's my job to do that. And on the facts, I'm going to lose. He can't make these claims, and he is making these claims. So I decided to attack the law by letting the Crown and the court know I was going to ask to have the law struck down, that part of the law, for violating our freedom of expression. Because if the judge accepts Health Canada's narrative that these heart drops don't work, and that this guy is putting people in danger by basically having them delay the proper treatment, then a judge isn't going to want to rule for me, even though the law would be on my side because it is violating freedom of expression. But the judge is going to think that actually he's putting people in harm's way. It was kind of my road to Damascus experience where I kind of realized that I was wrong when I bought Health Canada's narrative, that the danger was allowing people to choose to try a natural treatment. I literally could have given you the names, addresses, and phone numbers of thousands of Canadians that were only alive because of this single product. And I could give you example after example. I had a court case where my client was acquitted, even though on the facts they were guilty, because the court said more people would have died if you had listened to Health Canada. And there was a finding that Health Canada caused deaths because they did in restricting a natural health product for a short period of time. They were actually shamed into backing down because the Canadian Mental Health Association would hold press conferences every time one of their members died. So this is life and death. And a large number of Canadians are only alive today because of natural health products. Health Canada, for my entire career, has hated natural health products, and they have this goal of basically over-regulating them to the point that there'll still be vitamins and minerals on the shelf. Like for political reasons, we have to have that. And the very big players owned by the pharmaceutical companies, there's still a lot of money to be made that way, but they're going to be in amounts that really aren't therapeutic. And we're going to lose, our multi-ingredient, innovative products that people really rely on for things. We actually did not have any regulation of natural health products till 2004. So they were completely unregulated. You walked into your health food store prior to July 1st, 2004, everything in there was unregulated. And it took us over 10 years for most of the industry to get regulated. There's a big citizen rebellion about Health Canada trying to overregulate these products in the late 90s. The Parliament literally gets involved with the Standing Committee of Health, and there's this big report and recommendation saying, you do not regulate these as chemical drugs. Don't pretend that they're unsafe, because they're not. And there's literally 53 recommendations. And Health Canada comes up with what they call the self-care framework. And in 2017, where they're going to throw all of this away and regulate us like chemical drugs again. So I challenge anyone to read the Food and Drug Act and drug regulations and show me where Health Canada is charged with protecting health or acting in the public interest or having good health outcomes. Health Canada is there to enforce the Food and Drug Act and regulations. And the Food and Drug Act is passed under federal government's criminal law power. They don't have jurisdiction over health. The federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over health, and Health Canada is not there for our health, and they're not there for good health outcomes. And they never actually look into real risk. Well, if you're after good health outcomes, you'll look at, well, actually, what is the risk of allowing the product on the market? But then what are the benefits of the product? So what are the risks of removing the product from the market, right? That's a balanced risk analysis, and they never, ever, ever do that. So I did an access to information request of Health Canada probably about 12 years ago, where I asked Health Canada, please show me, let's go back to Confederation, 1867, please show me since 1867, so as long as Canada has been a country, all of the deaths that have been caused by natural health products. And Health Canada got back to me and said, we can't go back to 1867. Like, one, we don't have records that far. But in 1965, in response to the thalidomide disaster, we created the adverse reaction database, and we've got really good reporting and a really good database starting in 1965. So we'll give you the information from 1965. And I said, fine, okay, that's good enough. Laura-Lynn, they could not point out a single death from 1965 to the time of my request about 12 years ago caused by a natural health product. Maybe, like, I know that Health Canada is going out of their way to try and create this appearance of harm, but it's just not there. And so we're being told we need these regulations to protect us, but the reality is the risk just isn't there, but the harm of taking them away is there. We should have the right to decide how we're going to treat ourselves. It was the True Hope case where the court found that Health Canada caused deaths, like as a finding of fact. When I was calling, and this was a vitamin and mineral supplement to treat serious bipolar disorder. And, initially this product was only used by, or primarily used by, people that were the ones that were being involuntarily committed to psych wards regularly. So, literally they would spend half of their life involuntarily committed in a psych ward, and then they'd be released, and then they'd be back in. And the lifespan for people, once they reach that stage, you're lucky to live 5 years. So, and their life is a living hell. When I started calling these people to see, which ones I would want to call as witnesses at the trial, I wasn't prepared. I didn't have as one of my questions something that 100% of them volunteered to me. 100% of them explained to me that they had a suicide plan in place, that if they were going to lose access to this product, they were going to kill themselves before they got sick again, because 100% of them were not willing to go back to that hell that they were living. We're over-regulating them to stamp out the supply. And so how we're doing this right now, the changes are, we're going to impose the same fees that chemical drug companies pay for their yearly site licenses and product licensing and all of this. And we're talking, large sums of money, because there's tight margins in the industry. Whenever you increase the cost of doing business, you lose companies. Now, they're also increasing the regulatory burden, because they're harmonizing, they're moving the natural health product regulations to be the chemical drug ones, which are much more strict, and in many cases just stupid, and they shouldn't apply at all, and everyone with any expertise understands this. But that's not the goal. The goal isn't to be sensible. The goal is to drive them off the market. For political reasons, we're going to have vitamins. It's really our multi-ingredient products that we're going to run into trouble with. But that the vitamins are going to be, in non-therapeutic levels. So, take vitamin D, for example. Manufacturers on the label cannot have more than 1,000 international units as a dose. Well, that's meaning you might as well not take it. They're also saying, well, we're not going to license under this new scheme any product for which you would seek the advice of a healthcare practitioner licensed by province. Well, that's not just your medical doctors, it's your naturopaths, your homeopathic doctors, your traditional Chinese practitioners, your nutritionists, and the like. So if their products aren't going to be licensed, and the only other licensing scheme is the new drug approval process, which they can't get through. It costs about $1 billion. It's just over the top for dangerous novel chemicals. Well, where are those products going to come from? But Health Canada just pulled a fast one on us with the federal budget bill, Bill C-47, where they basically imposed a new fee structure on the industry. And this is also part of the self-care framework. So they sneak it in the federal budget bill and nobody notices it's there in time. And now it's law, it passed into law on June 22nd. So if you are selling a product selling it, there doesn't even have to be consideration. So a buyer's club's not going to get you around that. So if you're manufacturing or selling or distributing a product that is not licensed, that doesn't have Health Canada approval, that doesn't comply with this long list of, regulations, prior to June 22nd, your maximum fine was $5,000 per offense. But as of June 22nd, it is now $5 million per day that you're in violation. One thing I didn't share is so when I said, well, they're going to be imposing these fees that they charge the chemical drug companies, and they haven't costed out all of the fees, but the fees that they have costed out and they've published in the Canada Gazette, they're anticipating in their first year getting $118 million as a base bare minimum, and then there's other fees they haven't costed out. And they're going to use those funds to hire more inspectors, like to basically create a new police force. So that product that, I talked about that treats bipolar disorder, Empower Plus, well, the label claim is something like supports mental health. That doesn't tell you that it treats serious bipolar disorder or anxiety or a host of other things. And there are 35 published peer-reviewed research articles on that product, all funded by governments around the world, including Canadian governments. So it's a really interesting product. It's just so effective that actually governments have sunk money into clinical research on it. And some of these publications are in your blue chip journals, like Journal of Psychiatry, Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychopharmacology. Now, prior to these $5 million day fines coming into effect, True Hope had on their website links to those 35 journal publications, even knowing that Health Canada doesn't know, saying that's illegal to share that truthful health information about your product. But now that these $5 million fines have come into effect, they've taken those links down. The one exception is the United States, because they're more freedom oriented. So when they had their citizen rebellion in 1993-94 over the same issue, there was legislation passed, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which they're classed as foods. We do know that this initiative that just kind of torpedoed the industry came from 4 specifically named bureaucrats with no expertise in the regulation of natural health products, but a couple of them had clear ties to international trade. Bill C-51, that's where these powers were first introduced. There was an incredible citizen rebellion against them, and the government in Health Canada backed down. And now the curious thing is the Conservatives had been champions for the natural health community prior to that. So prior to Harper being elected, they, the Alliance and then the Conservative Party introduced what was then Bill C-420, which was going to kind of follow the American model and move natural health products into the food category. And I think it was even part of the Harper government's election platform to enact Bill C-420. And so the natural health product community supported the Conservatives getting elected, and then bang, it's like total turnaround on us. So in my experience, like every liberal government, conservative government, there's no difference in policy. And the NDP is always shouting for more. Well, you're not going far enough. So I don't see any political party in Canada that has privileged or understood that Canadians should have the right to choose how they're going to treat themselves. And they can't if you basically take a whole treatment modality of natural health away from us by treating them as dangerous and, taking them off the market. So
Right.
we need a whole rethink about this, and we need to take
Oh,
Parliament back about this.